My name is Shannon Strassner. I'm the program manager with Say San Diego. We're really thrilled that you decided to join us today. What I wish my parents knew is an action team of the San Diego Military Family Collaborative. The What I Wish My Parents Knew forums are a collaboration between youth, community service providers, schools, and other professionals. Although all of these partners are important, our youth are the essential ingredient in making the forum successful. Let's get started from hearing directly from some of our youth leaders. You'll now see a video where youth responded to the question, do you think people act differently in person versus online? Then Sarah 10th grader Nick Alcorn will share more about tonight's forum.
So for me, I think that people behave differently when they're in person versus when they're online, because I generally have found that people are generally more responsive and generally more interested in what people are talking about when they're talking face to face.
I definitely see a difference because, by the way, hi, I'm Nicholas Alcorn, and I see a difference through people being more bold, feeling more free to say things which can be beneficial through compliments and other uplifting things, but it can also lead to free arguments online that wouldn't happen normally in person.
Hi, I'm Kate. I completely agree with what Nick said. I was going to say the same thing, but I think when we're online, I think everybody in this meeting right now is wearing sweatpants on the bottom and a good shirt versus if we're in person, we can't be on our phone during a meeting and we are looking each other in the eye when we're talking versus that double-edged sword of responsiveness when you're doing things online.
Hi, I'm basically Frank, and I always say that when people are interacting online, they tend to be a bit more free, but also a bit more crude and brutish. Well, in person, basically, they're more restricted, but they're also a bit more uptight and more respectable.
Hi, my name is Holly, and building off of what Nick and Kate were saying, just like online, there's not really as much of a repercussion for what you say, just because you're surrounded basically by strangers who don't know who you really are. So you have more of a freedom to just kind of say what you believe, whether that's a good or a bad thing.
Hi, my name is Nick Alcorn, and I'm a sophomore at Sarah. For this, thank you for coming to this What I Wish My Parents Knew forum about how to stay safe in a digital world. Today, we will hear youth perspectives on online safety, and then from two subject matter experts that will provide insight into how to create safer online activity and to foster positive communication within families about online activity. Especially during the past year in quarantine, the internet has become a constant part of our lives through our dependence on it for many different things. The internet keeps us connected, entertains us, and makes school available to us. At the same time, it can increase youth's exposure to harmful online activity. Our goal is to bring about better understanding of online safety and specific safeguards to protect youth online, as well as the impact that online activity has on youth. We will also learn about specific tools for creating boundaries and encouraging productive and positive communication online to protect teens' mental health and establish healthy social connections. It is important for Sarah students to express what we feel is important to discuss at these events, so all of our What I Wish My Parents Knew forums are informed by youth survey responses that are instrumental in the planning and execution of the forums. Our main goal today is to make sure we all stay safe on the internet by learning more strategies to improve how we use it in our daily lives. Now I'd like to pass it over to Ms. Stacy to tell us more about the youth surveys and introduce us to our next youth presenters.
Thanks, Nick. So as Nick mentioned, this forum, along with all previous forums, have been shaped by high school student survey results. To shape this specific forum, a question was asked at the beginning of the school year, and it was, what do you wish your parents knew about safety? The survey was anonymous, and this question was open-ended, so students were free to write anything as their response. Now, this is a very broad question, so we got a spectrum of responses, as you can imagine. We did, however, receive several responses related to media, online, internet activity, so that prompted us to ask more detailed questions related to a youth's digital world, which you'll hear about next. We're honored to have 3 youth leaders here with us this evening who will each introduce themselves and share an overall summary of responses from a survey question that was administered. They'll also share how they're personally connected to this topic by sharing their perspective and experience. So first, I would like to turn the floor over to Holly, who will start us off by sharing the student feedback related to our first question we asked. Holly, feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Miss Stacy. Hi, my name is Holly, and I'm a junior from Sarah High School. And how do I use my time constructively on the internet? I do admit I spend a little more time than I should on TikTok, but through social media, I've been able to learn about things and people I otherwise wouldn't learn about. I follow a lot of scientist and social justice accounts. One of my favorite people on TikTok at the moment is Emily Calandrelli, who is one of the few female engineering graduates from MIT. She posts videos about science facts and how being a female has affected her science career, and just overall really cool stuff about what happens in the scientific community. As a science nerd myself, it's helped me to learn more about different people's lives so I can start planning my own.
Thanks, Holly. I love how just so often I feel as though when we see people just kind of looking on their phones or doing things, we're really jumped to believe that, oh, they're on maybe social media or they're always looking at their phone, which this forum hopefully will really bring out those positive things that our young people are actually doing, like community organizing work, advocacy, learning. So it was really important for the youth leaders and also us adult allies to kind of bring awareness to all of those positive, constructive things that all of you are doing online. So next up we have Kate.
I'm multitasking a bit right now. I'm sorry. So anyways, my survey question was, what are some things happening online that parents should be made aware of? And when I was looking through the answers, I found very juxtaposed responses. People either responded by saying that the internet is dangerous and it's very bad, or that it's constructive and it's really good. So to start off with some of the bad examples, people talked about things like scams or strangers and really weird people reaching out on social media and direct messaging, not safe for work and gory content that didn't have any disclaimers before it or anything, and then misinformation and harmful conspiracy theories, and also, especially during COVID, bad influences and social media influencers that have giant parties indoors in non-ventilated areas without masks that they are impressing upon their millions of followers. However, the people that responded with the good side of social media and of the internet talked about how they have had lots of opportunities. They've met new people that share common interests, and it's a great outlet for creativity. So people post dances or original songs or artwork on Instagram for their friends and followers to see. And for someone like me, I've worked with kids across the country in issues like mental health and racial injustice and criminal injustice, and even youth engagement in voting. And I'm speaking on a national panel in April just because I've done all of this stuff that has all been online because of COVID. So me personally, I found it to be such an amazing and enriching experience. So my call to action would be to educate your children about things like scams and fact checking, and like, you know, the stuff where in an email, if the email looks suspicious, then you can tell their child that that may be a scam email. However, still enable them to have that opportunity to have that creative outlet and to have that growth online, because they should be able to experience different social action and diversity.
Thanks, Kate. We're definitely going to dive deeper into those quote unquote kind of trends, scary things that you all kind of are experiencing online tonight. But then also I really like your call to action for parents and teens, because I think this whole forum really comes down to just the communication aspect between families. So next up we have Morgan sharing. Morgan, the floor is yours.
Hi all, I'm a junior at Sarah, and today I'll be briefly sharing my personal experiences in student survey results regarding the posed question, which is, can you share an example or an experience of how exposure to content online and in the media normalizes the use of alcohol or marijuana? So I'll be splitting this question into two short parts, one of which is being social media and the other being widespread media, which includes movies and TV. So to start with social media, I, for one, know that I've seen a lot of drug and alcohol consumption through various sources, mostly on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and I'm sure that many other students have noticed that as well. For example, one student wrote that on any internet source, whether it be TikTok or Pinterest, they will make the usage of alcohol or marijuana as an aesthetic, which is a huge problem since it normalizes and glamorizes the use of alcohol and marijuana while not showing the repercussions. Adding on, another student wrote that they've seen influencers on social media post drinking games and heavy partying, and it gives the idea that these things are safe when in reality they are not. So building off of what that student wrote, when individuals in susceptible minds witness this behavior and solely see it as a source of fun, they most likely will be drawn to the attraction and experiment with these substances, which is a huge problem, especially since they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. So moving on to more of a widespread media form, I, for one, have witnessed shows set in high school settings in which students are frequently smoking and drinking alcohol, all as a means to party and live the quote unquote high school life. And this is misleading for various reasons, as these shows are purely for entertainment, yet they showcase substance abuse and addictions, which gives the impression that drug and alcohol use is normal in teenage lives when it's not. The most accurate student submission from the survey wrote that exposure to the glamorization of alcohol might make a youth think it's less harmful and definitely more common than it actually is. The typical movies about high schools and how there's always alcohol in them is not helping. And building on that, a student wrote that the media often glorifies alcohol and drugs, especially when trying to paint the high school and college experience. And they said that they've never watched it, but they've heard that the TV show Euphoria has some mature themes while still only being set in the high school setting. And shows like that often have an influence on students as they think they need drugs and alcohol to have a good experience in school. So as a brief sort of summary, online, everyone's allowed to post and share essentially whatever they want, which includes drug and alcohol use. So when students see this behavior, they will likely think it to be frequent, which normalizes this behavior. Overall, though, I believe our generation is quick to avoid all sorts of drug and alcohol use, which is something that I'm proud to be a part of.
Thank you, Morgan. You very, very well said. And thank you, everyone, for giving us a glimpse inside your world related to your digital experiences and also for being the voice of your student body on this topic. Even though our students shared about 3 aspects of a young person's digital life, we're now going to dive a little bit deeper into this topic by identifying what's really happening online, how to stay safe, and strategies for families on how to communicate about this tough to talk about topic. So now I would like to introduce one of our amazing youth leaders, Angela, who will take us into our next segment. Angela, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Angela, and thank you, Holly, Kate, and Morgan for sharing with us. In our next bit, we're going to be hearing from 2 experts, Cheryl Suing-Jones and Dr. Ben Strader. Cheryl represents the District Attorney's Office at community events and meets with community leaders, residents, and organizations to address crime and quality of life issues. And she'll be providing us with a glimpse of some of the online trends we should be aware of while providing safeguards for families that we can implement. And Dr. Strader has been working in therapeutic residential educational settings. Currently, he is employed with the United States Army and as a licensed clinical psychologist, and also has his own private practice. He is dedicated to helping service members and their families with the unique challenges that come with military life. And I'm going to pass this on to Cheryl. Thank you for listening.
Suing-Jones. I'm with the District Attorney's Office, and I want to say the San Diego District Attorney's Office is proud to partner with Say San Diego in presenting internet safety for teens and parents. So we all know that the internet is a wonderful place. There are many great things we can do on it. We can watch movies, we can Google information, we can connect with each other, and now you guys are all going to school on the internet. However, it's also a powerful medium that predators use to prey upon young people. Predators reach children and teens through online social media. And reports of technology-based child exploitation have tripled amid the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's probably pretty obvious why this is happening, because schools are closed and students are on their devices all day long. Well, guess what? The predators are also contacting students on those devices. So your theme is, what do you wish parents knew? So there's some online statistics that parents should know. And that is, internet crime is the fastest growing crime in the United States. And children, including teenagers, are the fastest growing victim pool. 82% of sex crimes involving minors are initiated from social media. In over 65% of the cases, a child's social media profile provides information on their school and or home. And that is particularly if your page is public. And I know teenagers like to have public pages so their friends can contact them, but predators can contact them as well. 20% of teenagers have received unwanted online requests to engage in sexual activities or sexual talk. And 73% of youth who receive aggressive requests met the predator online. Only 1/3 of kids report these sexual contacts. And while girls are most vulnerable, boys are victims too. So let me ask you guys, does this look familiar? Does this look like your house or where you're gathering? I imagine it does, because everybody is on their devices all day long. We're not talking to each other because we're on our devices. And men are using video games and online apps, including Omegle, Roblox, and Discord, to communicate with boys. So boys are not immune, not one bit. So Roblox and Fortnite are true virtual worlds where kids can connect with others through social media, games, and messaging. And this becomes as real as any other relationship for them. And it's fine as long as it's all fun and games, but it's a problem when they're playing with people they don't know, because sometimes those people are adults. So let's talk about 3 general concerns: inappropriate online conduct, contact, and content. So first, inappropriate online conduct. What is that? Well, let's first start talking about your profile pages. It's certainly okay to put your interests, your likes, your dislikes, some quotes, or if you use an alias for your name. What's not okay is revealing or sexually inappropriate information or images. Never include your full birthday, because then they know how old you are, and then they know what age to pretend to be if they want to reach out to you. It's not okay to put your address or telephone number or your schedule or your school or your employer. The more they know about you, the more they can come after you in inappropriate ways. And friends online. Of course, the social media is a great way to stay connected with friends and family, particularly now that we're all still sheltering in place. So it's a great network. It can provide an outlet so we can connect with other people. But what's a problem is adding strangers, because this increases the risk of sexual predators contacting you. And it leaves kids vulnerable to stalkers, harassment, and all kinds of inappropriate contact. So inappropriate online conduct can actually hurt your future. You may not realize this, and maybe you do, but colleges are looking at students' social media, and so are employers. There have been instances where colleges have extended letters, offered letters for students to come, or they've been offered jobs. And then when they look on their social media and they see something inappropriate, then those jobs and college offers can be rescinded. And also, if you take pictures doing something illegal, like at your work, or doing something that's just wrong at your work, you could get fired, you could possibly get prosecuted. So let's talk a little bit about sextortion. It's a form of extortion, and it's where explicit images are used to extort additional photos, sexual favors, and sometimes money from victims. I'm going to show you a quick film that shows how this happens.
I can't stop thinking about you. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special.
You see, she thinks she's talking to this young guy, but that's not who she's talking to.
Who are you? Why are you doing this?
So that's an example of what can happen when you're doing inappropriate things online and you think you're showing it to some person that you don't know. Let's talk about inappropriate online contact. So social predators are using social media to contact and groom children and teenagers. So what does online grooming look like? Predators will often pretend to be a friend at school, a love interest, a modeling or talent scout. They may offer false promises of affection. They may offer gifts or even provide gifts. And they want to drive a wedge between you and your parents and guardians because they know the more people are likely to warn you. And the whole point is gaining your trust is to use it to exploit you. Social networking sites make it really easy to pretend to be someone else. You could think you're talking to this handsome young man with the backpack, and you're really talking to this old geezer with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. Or you could think that the person that's asked you to meet them at the park is this beautiful young girl, and when you get there, it's this older woman that is trying to set you up for something inappropriate. And you may be surprised to learn how easy it is to find information about you online. Let's look at what someone can learn from one Instagram post. They can learn your name and location. They can find you on Twitter and Facebook, figure out where you live, your interests, where you go to school, your hometown, your birthday. And it's really easy to find your birthday because often you get birthday messages on your social media. They can find your work history, phone numbers. They can even figure out when you're sleeping. And you would be very surprised to find all the information that is online. You should Google yourselves one day, or your parents or your teachers, just so you can see all of the information that is out there and available. There's a tragic incident that happened right here in San Diego County this month, where the parents in National City woke up to find their 11-year-old daughter not in her bed. And 8 hours later, they found her in an apartment with her captor. The child knew her captor, and the parents knew she had an extremely inappropriate relationship with her. They had done everything they could to keep her from seeing him. They had taken away all of her devices. But 11-year-olds and teenagers can be very clever. She found an old device and began communicating with him through the same game I was talking to you about a minute ago, Roblox. Roblox offers millions of games connecting players from all over the world. And the problem with this is obviously you don't know who it is that you're communicating with. And that person could be someone that was grooming you. So parents should know about these particular social apps and games. And I'm sure you all know that you all know way more about games than we as adults will ever know. As soon as we figure them out, you're on to something else. But it's really important that parents know about these so that they can warn their children. So now let's talk about inappropriate online content. So sexting is a form of inappropriate content. So what is sexting? It's sending explicit sexual messages, photos, or videos from any digital device. It can include photos or videos containing nudity or simulated acts. It also just includes talking about sex. And so why is sexting a problem? Well, there are many reasons. One, they can find their way onto, these images can find their way onto the internet, and they are to sexual offenders and other exploiters. And friends often break promises not to share. You send a picture to your boyfriend in February, you guys are all in love, he promises he's never going to show it to anybody else. Well, by March, you're broken up, and guess who has the pictures? The whole football team. Sexting can also lead to bullying and harassment. And if you forward a sexual image of someone underage, you, even as a child, could face pornography charges, go to jail, juvenile hall, or be required to register as a sex offender. And most importantly, sexting images never go away. Once you push the button send, you have no control over it. You can never call it back. Cyberbullying is another example of inappropriate online content. Cyberbullying occurs when a student uses the internet, cell phone, or other technological devices to send or post messages that are hurtful to other people, that embarrass them or humiliate them or intimidate them. When we were kids, bullying has always been around. When I was a kid, if the bullying happened at school, it happened at school. Once I got home, I was protected from it. But now you guys are not protected from it. It can come into your household, into your devices 24/7. And it has led to some tragic results. There have been children who are literally bullied to death. And when I say children, all the way from 12 and 13 to 18 and 19, because there's no way to stop these horrible images from coming into their homes. So while it may sometimes seem like it's fun and game, the cyberbullying, I want to warn you that it's not. So what can your parents do? Well, parents should require children to be their friend on social media. I know that maybe you don't want to be your parent's friend, but that's a really good way for them to help to protect you. Parents should review and approve games and apps before they are downloaded, and make the privacy settings very strict. Parents should monitor the child's use of the internet and keep computers in an open area. And what's really important is encourage open parent communication around internet safety. So how can you protect yourselves? Make your settings private. I know it's tempting to make it public, but please make it private. And set your photos at the highest link so strangers can't download your images. Only accept friend requests from people that you actually know. Anybody can put up a picture and say they're a 15-year-old boy or a 15-year-old girl. So just accept their friendship if you know them. And talk to your parent or a trusted adult if someone suggests that you send sexy or provocative photos, or offers you a job or opportunity to travel. I didn't put it on here, but never go and meet someone that you met on the internet. And talk to a parent or trusted adult if you receive sexual images or inappropriate links from another person. So the district attorney's office is working to keep your family safe online. We have created the Protecting Children Online Safety Campaign in order to shield children from dangerous predators online. And we're working with law enforcement, parent groups, children's organizations like Say San Diego, to give parents the tools they need to keep their children safe. So thank you, stay safe, and keep wearing your masks.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. So much illuminating information, and I definitely took notes for my 13-year-old son. And you mentioned communication often, and we know that that's always the central thing among families is communicating. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, and it's a wonderful transition to our next subject matter expert, Dr. Ben Strader. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
I would just like to state for the record that all the presentations so far have been excellent, and I hope that that we can continue such an amazing discussion. Thank you all for everything you've shared so far. Excellent. So I want to start with two experiences that have been on my mind when it comes to social media and information online and how to have these conversations. I am a father of 4 children. I have a teenager, a tween, and 2 children, young children. I have an older child and a young child, right? So I have very vested interest in keeping my social media access to the material that comes into my home very, very monitored, right? And I got scammed the other day with information that somebody found on a professional website about being a clinical psychologist. They were able to go on with the information that I had listed for my professional psychology practice, get my national practice number, my license number, and they called pretending to be the police, telling me that they were going to arrest me if I did not show up to court on time, that I was a failure to appear in court, and that there was a bench warrant out for my arrest. This was a very convincing argument. And of course, the solution was to pay $5,000 in order to keep myself from getting arrested. So we are not immune, even as adults, in this environment. And so we have to be really careful. And Cheryl, what great advice to keep our information safe. The second thing I want to point out is that recently I have been exposed to the tic-tac, or TikTok. I like to call it tic-tac to make my son angry. And he said, it's really great. I said, as a parent, I'm going to be your friend, and I'm going to get on and do all these things that Cheryl suggested so beautifully. And I got on TikTok, and I started at probably about 1 p.m. on a Saturday. And I looked up from the screen, and it was 7 o'clock. It was an amazing experience. What a beautiful dancing and music and all these other things like that. But what a powerful tool we have in front of us, but we need to approach any of these things with caution. And the first thing I want to talk about to caregivers and youth here on this discussion is that you are a team when it comes to being wise about your social media use. So we are not against each other. And the first thing we have to recognize, which I think was so beautifully discussed about with the youth presentations, is the positive content that we can find online. Of course, after Cheryl's discussion, I'm ready to cut everything off and go live in a cabin somewhere without electricity. But the reality is there's so much out there online, and especially in the COVID environment, this is how we as adults and youth are staying in contact with people and getting that important interaction. We're going to talk a little bit about what healthy interaction looks like online. There's neutral content and negative content. And so I really want to focus on some of these benefits that were already discussed, right? So beautifully discussed in terms of being able to reach out, being able to be activists online, advocating for all sorts of important ideas, advocating for populations that have been marginalized, and being able to have a voice. And it's so awesome that these opportunities are available. So we definitely want to encourage our youth to have access online, to be able to pursue interests, to have connection with others, and definitely to not feel isolated. So this is actually old data in 2019. If you look, over almost half of the world's population is online. And so this is a pretty striking, I think, opportunity. So with 7.7 billion people, this is how many people are active on these social media sites. And it's obviously higher since this information came out in 2019. And so what an awesome tool it is to reach out and have our boundaries dissolve, right? We're going to talk a little bit about what that can do to the brain. Here's a kind of a chart of average usage of media. And you can see this yellow media is what we would probably consider mostly social media, what we access through our mobile phones, right? So up to 6 hours a day usage with social media. This graph right here is talking about connection, right? And people indicating difficulties with connection. Indicating connection with others. And you can see how that tracks, right with our graph on the right side. So I wanted to put graphs in here so I look smarter. How'd I do? Thumbs up. Excellent. I look really smart. But right here is really important graph that I want to really truly highlight is if you look at the suicide, deaths by suicide have increased greatly in the past few years. And when it comes to deaths by suicide, a high percentage of youth deaths by suicide have had some association with access to social media or things that have happened in the online realm. And Cheryl talked about how bullying in the times before social media could end when we walked into our home and out of that environment. It doesn't end when youth have access to social media. This circle right here indicates where, if you can see right here, the rise starts after we really got access to a lot of social media. So we were at a low point in the terms of tracking deaths by suicide, and now here we've risen as we've had access to social media, right? And going back to that dissolving of borders, right? It also means that things are always close to us, that something that happens across the other side of the world can actually seem like it's right next to me and in my backyard. So consequences of overuse of digital media is poor sleep, anxiety, aggression, depression, relationship conflict, increased self-criticism, right? I want you guys to look at my beautiful brick wall here in my Soho apartment. And if I touch it right here, it dissolves, right? Because this is a backdrop that in the office that I created because of COVID-19, so I could see my patients when my clinic shut down, right? So I can present all sorts of things in social media that didn't exist before and that can seem very real. So this brick wall is a fabric thing. My wife's a professional photographer. This is one of her backdrops, right? So I can present all sorts of things that aren't real. And in many ways, if I'm looking at everyone else and thinking, what a beautiful brick wall in his loft apartment, the reality is it's just a normal office in a suburban neighborhood. So always recognize that the comparison game is very easy, as I can make my skin smooth. I can take the best angles and make things look very chic and smooth, when in reality, I'm just a human. But it's easy to compare, right? Cyberbullying, which was covered very well in the presentation before, exposure to negative content as well, it's covered before, suicidality, and increased feelings of insecurity. These are really common concepts that we're dealing with, and in working with youth throughout all different areas, I can see in many ways my patients that I'm talking with on a regular basis are talking about the online world and what's happening, right? And again, we don't want to ignore the positives. We always want to look at those. They're wonderful, but we also have to recognize what we need to be aware of. So here's our highest population of individuals that are going to be influenced by social media: people with a young age, people who are anxious and depressed, ADHD, autism, right? Anyone who's susceptible is likely to have more significant consequences when we have overuse of social media and actually online digital media as a whole, right? So we definitely want to make sure we have this conversation as parents and youth, that this is something that should happen with age and maturity, how much exposure we allow, what types of social media we allow. And we're going to talk a little bit about the way we can have a conversation as caregivers with our youth, and the way youth can speak to what's important to them with their caregivers. So recognize that that's something that's going to open with time and maturity, as you can do it in a positive and effective and safe way. All right, so again, what are the keys to having this conversation? First things first, boundaries are key. There should be places in your home, times in the day, where you don't have access to those, to that content, whether it be through your smartphones. A lot of people will do social media fasts. They'll have times in the day when things are cut off. There should be a cutoff time. These are really important things that youth and caregivers should work on together to figure out what those boundaries in the home can be, and boundaries outside the home as well, right? If I'm able to, if I'm going outside the home, I need to understand what those boundaries are. So the process should happen as you as a team create those boundaries and limits together. I'm going to provide a tool at the end of the presentation that is a tool that was put out by the American Pediatric Association in order to have this conversation how to create those boundaries together. So get educated about what's happening online. This forum has really done a great job educating from all different perspectives of what's happening online, both positive and things that we should be cautious about. And teens need to help their parents understand the risks. If you said it here today, or you heard somebody say it here today, the question I have to you is, have you told your caregivers what's been said on the discussion today that you've been exposed to social media? And that behooves caregivers to be cautious in their response if your youth is going to open up to you and talk to you about some of the things that have happened online that are negative. So we need to make sure that our response is going to be moderated and in a way that's going to be helpful for this discussion of a team creating these limits together. All right, and then some examples of the boundaries I kind of alluded to, right? What are the limits? When is it that we should be having social media, right? In limits on time, internet access. Remember, media comes in all different ways. That was done in the presentation earlier, right? It comes in television programs, it comes through our Xbox, it comes through all of these different things. And we need to obviously recognize that media and access to that online world is not just TikTok and other social platforms. So allow access more in public areas, right? If something's happening in a bedroom or behind a closed door, they're going to be more likely to have adverse risks when it comes to that stuff that's viewed in that area. When engaging in social media, research has shown that those who are, my son told me I'm an online creeper. That's why I said that, because I just like to look at people's posts and see where they go on vacation and then plan my own vacations accordingly, or whatever those things are. I don't post very much. But what research tells us is if I'm just creeping around or trolling and just trying to get a reaction out of people, it is an impoverished experience, a socially impoverished experience. So if I'm online learning and doing the things that we've talked about are these positive things, I should be posting. I should be making a positive presence online and returning the favor to the community as a whole. And that's where we get the best interaction with social media, is when we're engaged in the process in a positive way. Otherwise, it can be an impoverished experience. Screen-free times and places in the home. No screens an hour before bedtime. Sleep is one of the biggest negative effect that adolescents and adults are telling you. And then this is the biggest one. If we're working as a team, what can caregivers and parents do to mimic what they're recommending that their teenagers do? If you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. So if you say that there's times when you're off the phone an hour before bedtime, being able to mirror that we're willing to do that as well as adults. So those are some of the things. Here's this top one, the family media plan on healthychildren.org. And I'll send these to Stacy or Shannon to be able to send this out if y'all are interested in going on. But it's an actual form that you can fill out as caregivers and as youth to be able to have the discussion of what's going to be okay. There's a TED Talk on here, and also a website that talks about the actual chemical changes in the brain when it comes to social media. But I want you all to know that that this online world that we have can be such a great benefit. And if we work together as a team, if we have these discussions and realize that we can advocate for positive change and positive things to happen with our internet access and our online presence, then we can have great results. So pending anything else, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you all.
Now, I would like to extend a thank you to our subject matter experts for your insight into staying safe online and to use the internet in a way that is healthy and fulfilling. I definitely think that balance is important in how we use different media, especially because as we partake in the many benefits of the media we experience, we definitely have to know how to prevent the possible consequences of the internet we use with the help of our parents. Now we will be transitioning to the question and answer portion of the forum, where you as audience members will have the opportunity to ask questions of our subject matter experts and our student panelists, Shada, Frank, and Isabella. You can enter your questions into the chat and they will be read, or you can unmute and ask the panelists directly.
Hi, everyone. This is Jen Gibbons, and if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. I am with Military Child Education Coalition, and I'm going to read out. We had some questions that were kind of sent in before this presentation, which has been eye-opening from both Cheryl and Ben, and I appreciate both of you so much. Thank you so much. So some questions that came in for our subject matter experts. What are some red flags that as a parent we need to look out for so that I know my kids are older. My youngest is 20, and they're pretty much, they share things with me, and they, share funny or engaging stuff on TikTok and whatnot, but they don't necessarily tell me everywhere they go and everything, every, interaction they have online. And so I'm wondering, what red flag should I be paying attention to or looking for that maybe would indicate we need help, something needs to change? Ben or Cheryl, both of you jump in.
Okay, I can go first. So some of the red flags you want to look for is if your kids are being very secretive about what they're doing on the internet. You walk in the room and suddenly the screen changes, or if they seem upset. Something is happening where, they seemed happy and then now they seem very upset. Maybe something has happened or somebody has made an inappropriate type comment. Or if you see that they are communicating with people they don't know. And like I said, that happens very frequently on those games, and it happens with boys on those games. If they are wanting to leave the house to go meet someone and not really telling you where they're going. So those are the kinds of, there's really many red flags. But if you just see something, or you see that they are trying to keep a secret from you, chances are they're doing something that's not safe for them.
Yeah. Anything to add, Ben?
Definitely, I 100% agree. One of the things, of course, I'm always clued in on, right, is that behavioral change that Cheryl discussed, right? If you notice something different in your behavior, or in your youth's behavior, then definitely address it. And what I would say is, if you're constantly asking or having these conversations, then you create an environment where it can be openly discussed, and maybe even discussing some of the things that you come across online that are inappropriate, or where we're duped, or catfished, or whatever it is. Having that open discussion. If you look at the idea of what a youth or a teenager or an adolescent is in our society, it in many ways they're very mature and can do a lot of things that we can do as an adult. And so treating them as somebody that can have a discussion and be open with some of these things is a process that we should be engaging in as much as possible, to be able to give them a voice in our relationship with them and treating them like the maturing individuals that they are.
That's true. That's so true. And so much of it comes down to having that relationship where you can share and communicate. That's just kind of important across the board. There's in the chat box, interesting and much discussed about privacy versus safety, and what rights do parents have taking phones, shutting off the internet, if behaviors have become out of control. What are some thoughts on that from kids and SMEs? Subject matter experts, jump in. I'm going to mute myself so you guys can.
So I'll take a shot at that also. Now, I know it's very challenging because kids are very protective of their privacy, but what I would suggest is that you make that a rule when you first give them the phone. Like, these are the conditions of your getting a phone. These are the conditions of your getting a computer. Because I'm a parent too, and I know if you try to enforce it later, it's not going to happen. And ultimately, the person who's paying the phone bill has all of the control. I know that's easier said than done, but I think that's where you start, and try to insist that your children, and particularly the younger ones, even in high school, that they be your friend, that they let you be their friend, because then you can sort of more see what they're doing, and they're less likely to do things they shouldn't be doing if they know that you're their friend and you could be looking. So there's way more I could say, but I'll give somebody else a chance.
I'm curious what some of our youth have to say about that, safety versus privacy. And you know, how you feel if your phone gets taken away for a short time. You know, nowadays, I don't know that that's even, it's really hard when we're all in school online. So I'm curious what some kids have to think about that.
Well, I would basically like to say that if you take away like a teen's phone, you have to remember that for basically the average teen, especially for Gen Zers, the phone is basically kind of like a lifeline. They use the phone for roughly anything because this is what you get when you have a generation that basically lives in technology and basically knows nothing but about the technology they live in. So if you basically take away their phone, but you basically take away part of their identity. And so basically, you would kind of anger the teen. The teen is basically going to be very mad at you. They're basically going to probably rebel against you, probably try to get the phone back because the teen basically needs the phone as part of their identity because it could keep in mind that the phone is kind of like a lifeline for them, especially during the pandemic. It's the only way they can gain more information. It's the only way to do what they want. Like basically, they want to reach out with their friends. They have to use their phone. If they basically want to, follow their interests, they have to use their phone. And basically they have to basically use technology because to them there's basically no other option. And so this is basically why taking away the phone is a bad idea and should only be used as a last resort, because if you you take away the phone, you basically have estranged yourself from your offspring.
That's a good point, Frank, and that's definitely what it would feel like. Lisa had in the chat box had a good point. And Ben talked about this, create a contract between parent and child, set the parameters early and repeat them often so that everybody is aware of what the rules are. That's good. One more question, if I have a minute, I think for the youth on the panel. Hang on, let me find my list.
While you're looking, Jennifer, really quickly, we had an experience with this just the other day. The reality is my son decided that we had a contract that he understood the consequences of what happens if he's on after a certain period of time, because we have to have that 1 hour window before bedtime. But he wanted to text a girl, and he knew that was the consequence. And because he knew the consequence of a pre-decided contract, like Lisa mentioned, then he was willing to say, you know what, I'm willing to have these consequences because it's that important that I speak to that. So just like Frank was talking about, being able to have that connection is so important. And a contract acknowledges that and saying, like, you can make a decision just like a decision an adult would make to, speed in order to get to a meeting on time, understanding the consequences that they might get a ticket. That gives our youth to be able to make those decisions based on that with really good firm parameters around safety.
That's an excellent point. If they have the control and they make those choices, then that's their choice, and the consequences will ensue. If you guys need to go, we're running up to the end here, but I like this lively discussion, and this is just so impactful for all of our lives right now. So I'm willing to sit and talk some more, but if you need to cut out, please do. And yes, Morgan, whatever you need, you want to join in?
So I get the point that the panelists are trying to make about how if there's a predetermined contract, then it should be expected that this individual should give up their phone and allow the parent to go through it. But I speak from experience. When my phone gets taken away, I mean, I have nothing to hide. My phone, there's hardly anything on it, and I don't partake in anything bad. But when my phone gets taken away, and that's fine and all, but when my messages get gone through and everything that I have on my phone just gets read without me knowing, I feel like there's a breach in trust between me and my parents. And I don't feel like that should ever have to happen because I have nothing to hide. And even though I do have nothing to hide, it still is a violation of my trust to when I can tell when my phone is gone through. But I just think that when parents go through your phone without them telling you, there's just a breach of trust between the parent and the child. And I don't think that people should have to go through that, especially since trust between parents is essential for a good relationship.
You're exactly right, Morgan. And thank you for sharing that. This is a common thing, a common problem that we all have, trying to protect our kids and trying to keep them safe. And where's that line? So addressing that, and this is for the youth on the panel. Do you guys share? Do you find it easy to share with your parents something gone wrong, or even something fun and interesting that you've seen, online on TikTok? TikTok is a time suck. How about that? I'm with Ben there. It is crazy how time just is, it's crazy. But so I'm curious if the youth on the panel share this stuff with their parents or the adults in your life.
Oh, okay, can I go now? Or
Go
no?
ahead, Frank.
Okay, good, because I was trying to get on, but then, someone mute me.
Oh, no, go ahead. We can hear you.
Well, you see, the thing is that it depends on what you want to share or not, because the thing is that, you see, the reason why teens can be a bit secretive nowadays, even though teens have always been a bit secretive, is mainly because, there's always been the generational gap. Because what's very interesting for teens, you see, and basically what's considered a comedy for teens, like what makes teens, laugh and funny, especially for Gen Zers, is very different than that of adults. And so they're very secretive because the problem is that, because the thing is about, for concepts that make sense to people from my generation and basically appeal to people from my generation, or at least only, can make it very difficult to at least translate it to people from other generations, like older generations. And so basically the problem is that there's a bit of a struggle on trying to bridge the gap, is to create a sense of translation, of trying to explain whether it's a joke or even a new concept that basically has been invented. And we're basically, let me put it this way, if there's basically a forum and it's basically something that's spreading of a new idea, that to people from Gen Z, they'll be like, I actually understand that idea. I mean, it makes sense. I actually love it. Let's spread it around and basically let's talk about it. But when you try to explain the idea to your parent, the parent becomes frustrated and basically has no idea what you're even talking about, or especially what you've been up to as of late. And so that's basically why we see this sense of secrecy. And so when basically teens basically love to select about what they want to choose and what not to choose, because it's up to basically see if whether their caretakers can understand what they're trying to, learn from their teens.
You're exactly right.
They're impossible.
Yeah, Frank, you're exactly right. And that's a good point. That's generational, and it's communication type.
Generational gap.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. So as for the youth on the panel, what do you need from your parents to understand? And speaking as a mom, I know at the early days of social media, I went to my kids' profiles and whatnot thinking this is all bad. And I have to, my armor was up and I was on guard at all times. And then, as time passes and they're enjoying it and they've got good relationship and they're learning all kinds of stuff. Some of our earlier panels talk about the things you learn and you get involved with. I mean, it's amazing. Then you start to realize, well, it's not all bad and there is good things. And it's kind of cool how they're connecting with, global youth and these really cool things can happen. So kids, youth on the panel, what do you need from your parents? What do you need them to understand to keep you safe, but also give you a little bit of freedom?
Okay, so for my idea for my parents, I need them to understand that I'm not always playing video games with friends, I'm actually working, even though they come at the worst timing possible.
Yeah.
So need them to understand that.
Yeah, you're not always playing. And again, that goes with the generational thing. We assume you're messing around or goofing off or not doing your work, but really that's not the case. I would predict probably 98% of the time you guys are on task and learning cool stuff.
And I would also like to add on that, because the thing basically is to know that also the fact that we're also tend to be digital activists, that basically, we translate our work, but, go on digitally, because the thing, is that we're always kind of productive and always doing our own thing. Because the best way to describe Gen Z, especially what we're seeing as of late, is basically it's the equivalent of what teens were doing back in the 1960s. Basically activists. They basically, want change in their society. They go out protesting, but because of the pandemic, we have to change tactics. And so it basically helps improve, because
we can meet people from all over the world. We can easily strike. We can easily, form plans. We can do this much quicker. We can easily bring more change than any other generation, in history because of our ability. And the problem is that there's a sense that we are basically like apathetic. We don't know much of the world around us. We're kind of stupid, but we're not stupid. We know what we're doing. We want to make sure parents know that we basically do not just spend all day dancing around on TikToks. I mean, we do that sometimes, but normally in our break time. But when we're out of break, we go out and actually try to make change, whether it be things like environmentalism, racial justice, gun violence, basically feminism, women's rights, any change, even social justice, we can do it.
You're exactly right, Frank. This is the smartest generation that we've ever created, and I support you guys 100%. We're going to wrap up. We're going way past time. I'm going to kick it over to Lisa, and thank you for the good discussion. I'll mute myself. Lisa, it's all you.
Great stuff, guys. Hey, listen, I'm not going to be before you long. I just want to call your attention to that. Another thing that we need to watch out for is youth access to alcohol and marijuana. And we no longer have to just go to the liquor store and ask someone to buy it for us. We don't have to, always have fake ID to try and get into the marijuana dispensary or anything like that. We have third-party delivery services. And I just want to call your attention to the fact that alcohol is regulated differently than with cannabis. And what ends up happening is the police department, they are able to hold these minor decoy operations to ensure that retailers and third-party delivery services are not delivering to minors. So it's not just about purchasing alcohol, it's about furnishing alcohol to a minor. And very recently in April of last year in the state, we had over a 78% error rate statewide with these type of minor decoy operations where alcohol was furnished to someone who was a minor or who was posing as a minor. So things have tightened up now that we've been almost a year with COVID. And so those decoy operations have greatly improved, especially here in San Diego County. So that's really good. But I also want to call your attention to the fact that with cannabis, we don't have such a regulation. And so just for parents, just to be on the lookout for that, these are things that you can order online. And if these third-party delivery services are not checking to make sure that the person who the product is being delivered to is of age and is the person that ordered, this could really create problems at home later on. So I just wanted to kind of let you know about that. If you see anything like that, if you know of anything like that that happens in your home or anything like that, what you would do is you would report it to the California ABC. You would also report it to the non-emergency number with San Diego PD. And as part of North City Prevention Coalition, of which I'm the program manager for, we would love to be able to have that information as well to help facilitate a resolve for you. Lastly, this emblem that you have here on the screen is the SD Get It Done app. It is a place where you can actually report things that are occurring in your community, such as what I just described. You can also report issues of loitering, issues of, let's see what else, graffiti, things like that. So really, this is a way, it's a non-emergency program, but it is a way that you can let the city of San Diego know that there are some concerns that are happening in your neighborhood. They're not cool, and you want them to take a look at it. And really, that's all that I have for this short amount of time. And I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to Frank.
Why, thank you. Wait, what are supposed to be? There was supposed to be another slide, right? There we go. Now, to also reaffirm my point I actually made about Gen Z being activists, I would also like to bring the time to also talk about some initiative I'm doing. So basically, I work for LLS, which is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and so basically, every year we have a campaign to raise money in order to use the funds to help end cancer once and for all. And so I remember that basically there will be a link down in the chat. So if you want to help support the efforts to end cancer once and for all, please basically go down in the link, which should appear any minute now. Any minute now.
I'm working on it, Frank.
Okay, it will show up soon, but please go when it shows up, please click on that link and your efforts will be not be forgotten. It'll be very nice. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Frank. And we like to take the time at the end to highlight the wonderful work that the students are doing. And before we wrap up, I also wanted to acknowledge the artwork that you saw throughout our artwork and our flyers and our presentation are also done by our students. So Shada and Holly, thank you so much for your creativity. You always have such amazing work and we really appreciate it. So I'm gonna look for the link for Frank and I'll let somebody close this out here and talk about our next forum if that's okay. Can I pass it to Stacy?
Sure, you can. So also after you leave this forum, we will send you a follow-up email if you registered or if you signed into the link with some additional resources that our subject matter experts spoke about and have. And then also our next forum, and I think our last one of the school year, is Tuesday, April 20th, again, 5:30 to 6:30. So definitely stay tuned for that and follow us on social media for all of the exciting updates. And once again, thank you so much to our youth leaders and all of our subject matter experts, and especially to the parents and everyone that came out to listen to tonight. So we hope that you gained a lot of really good insight and information, and hopefully we'll see you in April. Thank you.